kind of pictures do you take? Smiling things? Laughing things? Crying things? Little things? Big things? Moving things? Standing still things? Wild things? Messy things? Beautiful things? Whatever you take pictures of, you want them to be sharp, to be clear. You want them to capture a slice of time for you to savor later on. Above all, you want to be able to do it easily and quickly, so that taking the picture is as much fun as looking at it. That's what your new Minolta Maxxum 400 SI is all about. It brings some of the most advanced technology in photography today right into your hands. And it does it in a way that's easy, and yet gives you total control over how you want your pictures to look. Hello and welcome. I'm Joe Barrett. First things first, congratulations on your new Maxxum 400 SI. It's a camera that offers you incredible flexibility to just point and shoot, to call up a subject program for a specific picture-taking situation, or to have complete creative control over every aspect of your picture. You decide, and the 400 SI makes it possible. In the next couple of minutes, we'll take a look at the types of pictures you'll be taking and how the 400 SI makes taking those pictures easy. First, we'll get started by getting your 400 SI set up right out of the box. Then we'll look at how the 400 SI gives you point-and-shoot simplicity to take fully automatic pictures with professional results. We'll look at the basics of composition and how you can use the most important accessory of all to take great pictures, your own eyes. We'll look at how your Maxxum 400 SI can give you creative control of your pictures through subject programs. Programs which adapt your camera to the special needs of portraits, landscapes, close-ups, action shots, and night portraits. We'll walk through the creative exposure modes on the 400 SI, modes that give you complete creative control over how you want your pictures to look. We'll take a look at the Maxxum family of lenses available for your 400 SI. These give you the creative freedom that separate an interchangeable lens camera like the 400 SI from a simple point-and-shoot. We'll explore the world of flash photography and why it can be more than just taking pictures in the dark. We'll look at how adding filters to your camera can do everything from improving reality to creating fantasy. And finally, we'll look at some accessories that help you get the most out of the total Maxxum experience. Of course, this tape can't go into every detail because you want to get out there and start taking pictures as soon as possible. What you will find here is practical information and lots of examples of photographs and how to take them. For more detailed explanations of the 400 SI's features, or to refresh your memory, don't forget to check the instruction book that came with your camera. All right, enough with the introductions. Let's get started, so you can get started with your own Maxxum experience. Since you're watching this tape, we'll assume that you've already unpacked your new camera from the box. But before you put the box away and forget about it, make sure that you take out the warranty cards, fill them out, and send them in. These cards register the warranty on the camera body and the lens with Minolta. Let's get your camera set up for picture taking. First, the lens. Remove the plastic caps from the camera body and the back of the lens. Keep these caps in case you need to store your camera or lens in your camera bag. Align the red dot on the lens barrel with the red dot on the camera body. Gently fit the lens into the camera body and then twist the lens clockwise until it locks in place. You've probably already attached the strap to the camera body. Later on, we'll talk about how to use the eyepiece cap that's attached to the strap. Your Minolta Maxxum uses a 6-volt lithium battery as a power source. Lithium batteries, like this Duracell, are lightweight, extremely efficient, more reliable under extreme temperatures, and have a very long shelf life. They also enable you to have quicker flash recycling time, faster film advance, and to be able to take more rolls of film per battery. Putting one in your camera is easy. Open the battery compartment and insert a fresh battery in the camera, then close and lock the cover. Fresh is a key word. Lithium batteries have a very long life, but their power levels tend to drop quickly as they run out. With that in mind, it's a good idea to always carry a spare so you won't miss that special moment. You can easily check the battery by moving the main switch from lock to on. This display shows you that the battery is okay. If you see this display, the battery is getting low. Keep a fresh one handy. And if the blinking battery appears by itself and the camera won't take a picture, it's time to replace the battery. One last step before you're ready to take pictures: loading film. There are many film choices available, and we'll talk about them later. But if you want color prints to show to your family and friends, Kodacolor film with a speed or ISO rating of 200 is an excellent choice and will give you great results in just about any condition. To load film, open the camera by sliding the release on the side down and swinging the back open. Drop the film cassette into the chamber and pull the leader straight across past the mark. Make sure that the holes in the film engage the sprocket teeth. Close the back of the camera and snap it shut. The film will automatically advance to the first frame and you'll see the number 1 in the data panel. If the display doesn't go to 1 or it blinks, open the back and try again. Make sure that you use DX-coded film as indicated by this symbol on the box and on the film cassette. This code allows the ISO or speed of the film to be read by the camera's metering system. This assures that the camera will set the proper exposure for the film you're using. We'll talk more about ISO ratings later on. When you reach the end of the roll of film, the camera will automatically go into rewind. With a fresh battery, this will take about 16 seconds for a 24 exposure roll. If you need to manually rewind the film before the end of the roll, use a pen or a similar object to press the manual rewind button on the bottom of the camera. Now you're all set. So let's use the automatic settings on the camera to take your first pictures. Your new Maxxum has a very advanced expert program. This program sets the exposure based on such considerations as focus, the lens you're using, and the size and brightness of the subject. And using the expert program is as simple as can be. First, turn the camera from lock to on. This activates all of the camera's systems. If you wish, raise the flash by pulling it up from the camera body. In the program mode, if the flash is raised, it will fire whenever necessary. To take clear, sharp pictures with any Minolta camera, you'll need to hold it properly. Use both hands. In the horizontal position, your left hand should serve as a support for the camera while your fingers wrap around the lens. Your right hand should grab the hand grip with your index finger resting on the shutter release. To take a picture, brace your elbows against your body and slowly squeeze the shutter release. You can also easily rotate the camera to the vertical position if that's a more suitable framing for your subject. Look through the viewfinder and place your subject inside the focus frame. Press the shutter release partway down. This activates the automatic expert programs of the camera, autofocus and auto exposure. Your new Maxxum has one of the fastest autofocusing systems available today. Not only does it quickly focus on your subject, it can even track the focus as your subject is moving toward or away from you. You can see an indication of the autofocus system in the upper part of the data display in the left of the viewfinder. If it glows steadily, either like this or like this, the camera is focused and you can take the picture. If you don't see the center signal or the center signal is blinking, you'll be unable to take a picture. If that happens, simply shift the position of the focus indicators slightly until you get a good focus indication. You can also manually focus the lens by first pressing the AF-M button and then twisting the focus ring on the lens. To return to autofocus mode, press AF-M again or simply press P. In the data panel and in the viewfinder,
The shutter speed, how fast the camera takes a picture, and the aperture, how much light is reaching the film, are shown. In the Expert P mode, the camera will select the best combination of these two to produce the correct exposure. Later on, we'll talk about how you can adjust these controls to get just the effect you want. The little symbol in the bottom of the side panel indicates that the built-in flash is raised. The lightning bolt indicates that the flash is charged and ready to fire. After you take a flash picture, the lightning bolt will blink rapidly to indicate that you got a good exposure. To take a photo, gently squeeze the shutter release all the way down. That's all there is to taking great photos with the 400 SI's fully automatic program. Later on, we'll review some of the controls as well as the indications in your viewfinder in more detail. But first, the key to taking great pictures lies in the one accessory you had before you even unpacked your camera, your own eyes. Knowing how to look at the world through your viewfinder can make your snapshots great shots. So before we go on, let's take a few moments to talk about composition. What your camera captures on film is determined by how you look at the world and how you see that world through the viewfinder. Good photographs require composition, and that means that you don't just take a picture, you compose a picture. It's the difference between the land or a landscape, a person or a child, standing still or being a part of the action. It's the difference between taking snapshots and really good shots. There are a few simple techniques which can easily improve your photographs. First, and most important, try to get in close, really close. Get rid of elements that distract from the subject. Focus the viewer's attention exactly where you want it. Intimate close-ups of family and friends, their smiles, their faces, what makes them important to you. Getting close is the easiest way to create a new and exciting look for your pictures. And that's what photography is all about, capturing not only an image, but the feeling that you got when you first saw that scene. But of course, people's faces are not the only things that make up your life. There are mountains and rivers, canyons and cities, family and friends, sunrises and sunsets. All of these and lots more can make great pictures. But instead of moving in, you'll have to back up, include more of the scene. But that doesn't mean that a picture has to look like this. Simply putting your subject a little off-center can get a picture like this. Much more interesting, dramatic, dynamic. And since your subject is on one side of the frame, don't leave your viewer wondering what was out there. Have the subject look into the frame. That lets the picture tell the whole story. Of course, putting your subject off to one side may put them out of the focus marks in the viewfinder, but there's an easy solution to that called focus hold. We'll talk about that in our section on portraits. When you're taking in those broad views, use the same rule as when you get in close. Minimize the distracting or unimportant elements. If the top of the picture is less interesting, let that occupy less of the frame. If it's the top you want to show, then minimize the bottom of the picture. One final trick with composition. Approach your subject from an angle that helps to tell the picture's story. The most intimate pictures are taken eye to eye at the same level. So if you're shooting a child, a pet, or something else closer to the ground, bend your knees. Get down to that level. If you shoot down on them, they'll look small and distant. By the same token, if you shoot up at something, it becomes bigger and more powerful. In either case, you control the feeling that your viewer will get from the picture, even if your subject doesn't change. Just a few simple points about basic composition, but they'll help you take photos that will be memorable for years to come. Up till now, we've been talking about using your new 400 SI in the fully automatic program mode. You just compose the shot, and the camera automatically focuses, selects the shutter speed, and figures out the aperture to get you the best exposure for good pictures. But by using just two buttons, you can take control. and your 400 SI will go from taking good pictures to taking great pictures. Let's take a look. Your new 400 SI has 5 subject program modes which are accessible by the touch of a button. What do they do? Well, they bring the experience of the best photographers right to your fingertips. Your camera will still automatically focus and set the exposure, but it will do so with an eye toward what kind of picture you're taking. For portraits, landscapes, close-ups, sports, or night portraits, your 400 SI will choose the best combination of shutter speed and aperture to produce great pictures. In fact, you'll see the camera's selections in the data panel and in the viewfinder. Entering the subject modes is simple. Make sure that the command switch is set to the subject program mode. Press and hold the mode button. Now turn the dial until the desired subject mode blinks. Release the mode button and you're in that subject mode. You can easily change back to full automatic program mode by pressing the P button. As I mentioned earlier, this resets all camera functions to their standard factory settings. Let's take a look at each of the subject modes one at a time. First, the portrait mode. Use the mode switch and the dial to enter the portrait mode. What makes a picture a good portrait? Well, shots of people usually benefit from a shallow depth of field. That means that only the person in the picture is in focus, while the background is soft and non-distracting. This effect can be achieved by selecting larger apertures. Well, the portrait mode on the 400 SI makes the necessary adjustments to achieve this, while adjusting the shutter speed to give you perfect exposure. This leaves you free to concentrate on composition and on capturing that perfect moment. This effect can be enhanced by using a longer or telephoto lens, or the telephoto setting on a zoom lens. This also helps with that rule of composition: get in close. Minolta makes a number of telephoto lenses that are perfect for portraits: an 85mm, a 100mm, and a 135mm. Minolta also makes a number of zoom lenses, which can give you the same effect. We'll talk more about the complete line of Minolta lenses available in a little while. You can add flash to the scene if the background is much brighter than the subject, or if there are strong shadows across your subject's face. Keep in mind, however, that the range on the flash requires that your subject be pretty close to the camera to be effective. You may find that if you use a telephoto lens, and if you put the subject off to one side, as we talked about in composition, your camera may focus on the background. To prevent that situation, you can use focus hold. First, position your subject within the focus frame in the viewfinder. Press the shutter release about halfway and hold it. You'll notice the focus indication coming on and glowing steadily in the upper left. Now, without releasing the shutter release, recompose your picture. The focus will stay locked on your subject. Now you can take the picture composed any way you wish. You may also want to take a portrait of yourself. That's where the self-timer comes in. First, set your camera on a tripod. You might also prop it on a handy ledge or wall. Just be sure that it's not going to fall. Press the drive selection button and hold it. Now turn the dial until the self-timer indication blinks. Release the drive button and you're in the self-timer mode. Compose the picture any way you want. Just make sure you leave room for yourself in the picture. Attach the eyepiece cap from the strap to block unwanted light from entering the camera. Press the shutter release, and you now have 10 seconds to get into the picture. After the picture is taken, the self-timer will automatically be canceled and the camera will return to normal mode. If you need to cancel the self-timer while it's taking a picture, just slide the main switch to lock. One last portrait tip: don't hesitate to take more than one. Many times the subject's expression will change after you take the first picture. The more shots you take, the better chance you'll have of getting that priceless shot. Let's move on to the next subject program. The same sequence of mode switch and dial will get you into the landscape mode. What makes a good landscape is almost exactly the opposite of what makes a good portrait. Everything's in focus. So your 400 SI selects the smallest aperture possible and the best corresponding shutter speed to give you maximum depth of field without introducing blurring from camera shake. Wide-angle lenses, or the wide-angle position on a zoom lens, will help you get all of that scene into the frame. There are several wide-angle Minolta lenses that are perfect for landscapes. And as with telephotos, there are a number of great Minolta zoom lenses that include wide-angle settings to give you the freedom to select the perfect framing. Usually, flash won't help with landscapes because the subject is out of flash range. The next subject mode is for close-ups. In this mode, the subject program aims to produce a sharp subject with a soft background. You'll most likely need a macro lens or a macro zoom to enable you to get in real close. Again, Minolta makes several for your Maxxum. Minolta also makes a special macro flash that's specially designed to enable you to control the light. And for real close-up work, you'll want to use a tripod to help steady your camera. The world doesn't always stand still and wait for you to take its picture, and that's the reason for the sports subject program. Fast action requires a fast shutter speed, so the sports program sets the highest shutter speed possible to freeze the action. It will also set the autofocus system to continuously track the action and focus on it rather than locking the focus at any time. The symbol in the upper left indicates that the camera is in continuous autofocus mode. Action photography is challenging. Keep the focus frame centered on the subject and use faster films, ISO 400 or higher, to enable the camera to set faster shutter speeds. If the action is really moving, you may want to use the continuous drive mode to take sequential pictures of the action quickly. As with the self-timer, press and hold down the drive mode button. Then turn the dial until the continuous drive symbol flashes. Release the drive mode button and you'll be in continuous drive mode. Now the camera will keep taking pictures as long as you hold down the shutter release. Between each picture, the camera will recheck the exposure and the focus. Because the camera won't take a picture unless it's in focus, the speed of the continuous mode will vary. The final subject program is for night portraits. Night portraits normally are tricky. You have to balance the light on your subject with the lights in the background. Fortunately, the 400 SI makes it easy. Use the built-in flash or an accessory flash unit and the camera will balance the light to capture foreground and background. Without a flash, this mode is great for capturing city skylines or other objects that are outside of your flash range. In either case, since the camera will be using a longer exposure, it's a good idea to use a tripod to minimize camera blur. All of these subject modes are designed to produce great pictures based on the expert programs which are in the camera. You simply tell the camera the type of pictures you're taking, and it does the rest. But what if you want more control? What if you want the action to flow a little, or the fireworks to glow? Well, your Maxxum 400 SI makes that possible too. And it's not much more difficult than using the subject modes. Let's take a look. Your 400 SI has 3 creative exposure modes: aperture priority, shutter priority, and full metered manual. Each gives you the control to tailor your photograph to your own creative vision. Entering the creative exposure modes is easy. Set the command switch to the ASM position. Press and hold the mode button. Now, turn the control dial until the mode you want flashes in the data panel. A for aperture priority, S for shutter priority, M for full metered manual. Release the mode switch and you're in that creative exposure mode. Let's talk first about the aperture priority mode. We said earlier that portraits generally benefit from shallow depth of field, fewer things in focus, and landscapes generally look better with a greater depth of field, more things in focus. But as with almost everything else in life, rules are meant to be broken, and photography is no exception. Take this portrait. Nothing wrong with it, unless you want to see the background as well. And for that, aperture priority is just the ticket. In aperture priority, notice the A in the data panel, turning the control dial changes the aperture, or f-stop, the size of the lens opening. Smaller numbers mean a larger opening and a smaller depth of field. Larger numbers mean a smaller opening and a larger depth of field. You select the aperture that gives you the results you want, and the camera selects the best shutter speed to give you the correct exposure. You can see the f-stop you've selected and the shutter speed that the camera has selected to match in the data panel and in the display in the viewfinder. One note of caution. It's possible to select an f-stop to which the camera can't match a shutter speed. If this happens and you're outside the camera's range, the shutter speed will blink. If 2000 blinks for 1/2000th of a second, you'll need a smaller aperture, less light, higher numbers. Turn the control dial until the blinking stops. If 30s blinks for 30 seconds, you'll need a bigger aperture, more light, lower numbers. Again, turn the control dial until the blinking stops. In the same way that you select aperture priority, you can also choose shutter priority. In shutter priority, you choose the shutter speed you want and the camera selects the correct aperture for the proper exposure. Choose a fast shutter speed to freeze the action and make time stand still. Choose a slower shutter speed to create a blur and let the action flow. This can emphasize speed. Keep in mind that slower shutter speeds mean that you can introduce camera shake into the picture, unwanted blurring. If you're following the action, be sure to move the camera smoothly, or you can use a tripod. As with aperture priority, it's possible to select a shutter speed to which the camera can't match an aperture. If the aperture display blinks, turn the control dial and select a different shutter speed within the camera's range. Finally, you can use the mode button and control dial to select the full metered manual mode. In this mode, you have total control over both the shutter speed and the aperture to achieve just the results you wish. Turning the control dial by itself will adjust the shutter speed. If you hold the aperture button in and turn the control dial at the same time, you'll be able to adjust the aperture. Even though you're in manual mode, the camera's expert systems are still at work, guiding you to get the effect you want. If the shutter speed and aperture you select will produce the same exposure that the camera's expert systems would produce, the viewfinder display will simply show your choices. On the other hand, if your selections would produce a darker or underexposed picture, a minus sign will appear in the viewfinder. If you wish, you can then make adjustments. Likewise, if the shutter speed and aperture combination you choose would produce a picture that's too light or overexposed, a plus sign will appear in the viewfinder. Again, you can make adjustments if you like. In either case, you have complete creative control over your photographs. There's also a special shutter speed setting called bulb. With this setting, the shutter will stay open as long as you hold down the shutter release. This is the perfect way to capture fireworks. In the manual mode, turn the control dial to the left until you see the word bulb in the data panel. Now the lens will stay open as long as you hold down the shutter release. For best results, you want to put your camera on a tripod. Usually a wide open aperture is the best bet. Just point your camera towards the fireworks and hold open the shutter for a few bursts. It's that easy. In all of the 400 SI's exposure modes, you can set the camera to automatically over or underexpose a picture from half a stop up to 3 full stops in half a stop increments. Simply press the plus-minus button near the lens. While holding it, turn the control dial to set the amount of exposure compensation you want. Once you release the exposure compensation button, you'll see a plus or minus in the data panel to remind you that you're using exposure compensation. To check how much, just press the exposure compensation button again. In all three of the creative exposure modes, if the built-in flash is raised or you have an accessory flash on the camera, it will fire every time. The cameras through the lens metering system will control the output of the flash to give you proper exposure, as long as you're within flash range. We'll talk more about flash photography in just a moment. But one of the most exciting things about your Maxxum 400 SI is its ability to use different lenses. So, let's look at how lenses can change your view of the world. The ability to change lenses is what sets single-lens reflex cameras apart from the rest of the pack. You can get closer to your subject or back away, all without moving a step. That allows you more options to compose your picture any way you want. What's more, your new Minolta camera has access to one of the largest families of autofocus lenses available. So whether you need to get close or get far away, there's a Minolta lens that's perfect for your needs and for everything in between. Changing lenses is as simple as a twist of the wrist. All you have to do is press the lens release button on the camera body and twist the existing lens off. Then align the red dot on the new lens with the red dot on the body and twist it until it locks. Why would you bother changing the lens? Well, as we talked about in our section on composition, different types of pictures require different framing, and lenses enable you to achieve that without moving a step. First, let's define what we're talking about. You may have what is known as a normal lens on your camera. This is a lens that sees approximately what your eyes see every day. It has a focal length of about 50 millimeters, and for general picture taking, it's fine. But if you need to get more into your picture, you'll need a wide-angle lens. These lenses have focal lengths below 35 millimeters and are great for vistas and exaggerated views. There's even an extreme wide-angle lens called a fisheye. It has a focal length of 16 millimeters or less and produces photos with a curved look. When you need to get in close to your subject or bring a distant object closer, you'll need longer lenses, telephotos. They have focal lengths over 70 millimeters. Minolta makes autofocus telephoto lenses all the way up to 600 millimeters. Let's take a moment to look at one subject and see the different results you get with some of the Minolta autofocus lenses. Let's start with a normal lens, a 50 millimeter. Now, without moving from this spot, let's change to a 35 millimeter wide angle. Notice how we've added more background. Here's a 28 millimeter, a 24, and a 20. And here's a 16 millimeter fisheye. Notice the curve in the image. So, the shorter, wide-angle lenses make it look like we backed up without moving a step. Now, let's go back to our 50 millimeter and go up from there with telephoto lenses. Here's an 85 millimeter. Remember, we haven't moved, but it looks as if we've gotten closer. A 100 millimeter brings us closer still, as does a 135 millimeter. These are great lenses for taking portraits because they bring you in nice and tight to your subject. Here's a 210 millimeter, again from the same spot, about 300 feet away, or one football field in length. Minolta even makes super long telephotos at 300 millimeters and at 600 millimeters. When you use a lens this long, you want to steady your camera with a tripod so you don't get any camera shake in your picture. Minolta also makes lenses that enable you to see little things in a big way. These are called macro lenses, and they let you get close to small objects. There are 3 autofocus macro lenses for your camera. They let you take photos which are life-size or half-life-size, depending on the lens. That means that the image on the film will be as big or half as big as the object in real life. There's even a macro lens called the 3:1 macro zoom, which will enable you to make your subject 3 times larger than it is in real life. With all these macro lenses, it's important to use a tripod to steady your camera. That's because a large image size can also mean a large blur if you shake the camera. But what if you want a couple of different focal lengths but don't want to carry a couple of different lenses? Well, that's where the Minolta zooms come in. Zoom lenses combine a number of focal lengths into one lens, from 24 millimeters up to 300 millimeters. With Minolta zooms, you just twist the barrel of the lens to go from wide angle to telephoto and every step in between. You have complete creative control to select the perfect focal length for your picture. Of course, focusing is fully automatic. Minolta even has an XI series of zoom lens. These intelligent lenses have a special feature called image lock. Push the image lock button and the lens will zoom automatically to keep your subject the same size, whether it's moving toward or away from you. That frees you up to pick the perfect moment to take the picture. As you can see, the family of Minolta lenses gives you virtually limitless possibilities in composing your picture. Many experienced photographers keep a variety of lenses handy, both single focal lengths and zooms, so they have the versatility they need to get that special photo in any situation. Your photo retailer can help you select the best Minolta lenses for your needs. Now, there's probably one type of picture-taking situation that you'll run into sooner rather than later, and that's taking pictures where you have to add light. So, let's shed some light on flash photography. Sooner or later, you're going to want to use a flash for taking pictures. Whether it's just to make a situation bright enough to take a picture, or to smooth out an otherwise shadowy picture, like we talked about when discussing portraits, or to actually design the light that's focused on your subject. Your new Maxxum camera can help in all three situations, and do it with ease. For starters, there are a number of flash indications in your viewfinder. We mentioned them back when we were taking our first pictures, but they probably bear repeating. When the flash indicator blinks, it means that you need more light to make a good exposure. You'll also notice that the shutter speed is probably blinking. This means that while you can take a picture without a flash, the shutter speed is so slow that camera shake may occur and cause blurring. If you decide to take a picture in these circumstances, make sure you use a tripod. In a situation like this, if the flash is raised and the camera detects that the scene is too dark to focus accurately, the flash will automatically fire a short burst of light before and after the lens focuses. This will enable the camera to focus even in complete darkness. To turn the autofocus illuminator off, press and hold the flash mode button while turning the camera on. You'll see Off AL in the data panel. To turn it back on, just repeat the same steps, and On AL will appear in the panel. Let's get back to the symbols in the viewfinder. When the flash symbol glows steadily, it means that the built-in flash is raised or that an accessory flash is attached and charging. When the lightning bolt symbol appears, the flash is charged and will fire when you press the shutter release. And after you take the picture, the lightning bolt will blink to indicate that you got a good exposure. If you want to use the built-in flash, all you have to do to turn it on is to pull it up. Normally, in program, aperture priority, and shutter priority modes, the shutter speed is automatically set. The flash output is then controlled automatically by the camera's flash metering system to give you a good exposure. In manual mode, you can set the shutter to any speed up to 1/90th of a second. Photographs of people sometimes suffer from an effect called red eye. This is when the flash bounces off of the inside of your subject's eyes, giving them a red glow. Your camera has a feature to minimize this problem called red eye reduction. To turn on the red eye reduction feature, simply press the flash mode button. When you select this function, the camera will fire several short bursts of light before the main flash. This will cause the iris in your subject's eyes to get smaller, reducing the red eye effect. You may want to warn your subjects that this will be happening so they won't get startled. To turn off this feature, simply press the flash mode button again. While most people think of using a flash when it's too dark to take a picture, you can also use a flash when there's plenty of light, but it's just not in the right place. This is called fill flash, and it can be used in situations where the background is very bright as compared to your subject, or if there are deep shadows. To use fill flash, press and hold the flash control button while you take the picture. The flash will fire, helping to balance the light in your picture. If you need even more flash coverage or want more versatility in your flash picture taking, you should take a look at the other accessory Minolta flashes. They extend your flash range, give you the ability to use bounce flash, and also give you such advanced capabilities as wireless off-camera flash and automatic ratio flash. Far from being complicated, these techniques not only eliminate red-eye effects, but can give you pictures with that professional modeled look. Let's take a look at what I'm talking about. Here's a regular flash photo, the kind you'd get with a built-in flash, or an accessory flash mounted on the camera. While the picture is well exposed, notice how the features are flat. That's because the light is coming straight at the subject. With a wireless off-camera flash, you can move the light source to the side, creating some modeling of your subject's features and a far more attractive picture. And with ratio flash, where the camera's built-in flash fires along with the off-camera flash, you can create an attractive balance that shows your subject off in the best light. Your Maxxum makes these two possibilities easy. First, put your accessory flash onto your camera by sliding it into the hot shoe. Turn on your camera and the flash. Press the camera's flash mode button, the same one you use to activate red-eye reduction. WL will appear in the data panel, indicating that the camera and flash are set for wireless remote operation. Remove the accessory flash from the camera and raise the built-in flash. Now you're all set to use the accessory flash in remote operation. The built-in flash fires a special coded signal that will fire your remote flash, and then the camera takes the picture. And because it's a coded signal, you don't have to worry about other people's flashes triggering yours. For ratio flash, simply press and hold the flash control button and then take the picture. The accessory flash will provide 2/3 of the light, and the built-in flash will provide 1/3. To cancel either of these modes, put the accessory flash back on the camera and press the flash mode button. Depending on which model of Minolta accessory flash you're using, there may be other adjustments possible. Check the individual instruction book for your flash for details. There's one final creative set of tools you may want to consider. They can help you enhance reality, create fantasy, you name it. So let's spend a few minutes talking about filters. Sometimes you need a little special help to make your picture into something special. And that's where filters can come in handy. There are as many different filters as there are ways of looking at the world, and they're all easy to use. Minolta makes a number of filters which just screw onto the front of your lens. For starters, it's a good idea to put a UV or skylight filter on the front of every lens you own. That'll protect the front element from dirt and fingerprints. It's an inexpensive way to protect your investment. One of the most common special effects filters you'll use is the polarizer. This filter cuts down on glare and deepens colors, making the sky bluer. You'll need a circular type polarizer with your new Maxxum camera so that the autofocus system will work correctly. Beyond that, the sky's the limit. For instance, with the Koken Creative Filter System that's marketed by Minolta, you have over 100 filters to stretch your imagination. Just place the Koken filter holder on your lens with the proper adapter. After that, it's a simple matter of sliding in the filter you want. Perhaps you want to make the sky blue when it's not, or create sunset at noon, or create a shimmering mirage. Your creativity can really shine through. There are filters to make the world prettier, or more dramatic, or just fantastic. And that brings us to our last section, some of the other accessories for your Maxxum camera. We've spent a good deal of time talking about the features on your new camera and how they affect the way your pictures will look. But at the most basic level, the film you choose will have a big impact on how good your pictures will be. Films with the word chrome in the name produce color slides. These are great for showing to a group and can make quite an impression on an audience. On the other hand, films with the word color in the name produce prints. These are perfect to share with family and friends, and it's easy to make copies and enlargements for all to enjoy. Once you decide on the type of picture you want, you have to select a speed or ISO rating. As a general rule, films with lower ISO numbers produce better images, while films with higher numbers take pictures in lower lighting. That makes higher ISO film perfect for indoor photography without a flash and for fast-moving action. Kodak makes a wide variety of high-quality films. There's one that's perfect for your needs. Just ask your photo retailer for help. It's also well worth your time to check out magazines like Popular Photography and American Photo. They contain a wealth of great ideas and tips, as well as practical advice on the equipment you'll be using. Both are a great way to stay on top of all the latest developments in the world of photography. Likewise, there are a wealth of books on photography available at your retailer to help you learn and improve your photos in specific picture-taking situations. We've talked a number of times about using tripods, and there's quite a selection to choose from full size to pocket or tabletop. You might also want to take a look at a flash bracket. This can get your accessory flash farther away from the lens, further reducing the chance of red eye and giving you more pleasing pictures. You'll probably also want a gadget bag to carry not only your camera, but the lenses, filters, film, and other accessories we've talked about. And don't forget photo albums and frames, so you'll have a convenient way to show off your pictures to your family and friends. For advice on any of the things we've talked about today, your photo retailer is a great source. They keep up to date on the latest equipment and techniques and will be happy to help you get the most out of your new Maxxum camera and accessories. You know, with all of the things we've talked about in the last few minutes, perhaps we've forgotten the most obvious. The best way to get the most out of your new 400 SI is simple. Take a lot of pictures. That way you'll get comfortable with your camera and will enjoy experimenting with the creative possibilities. The more you take, the more good ones you'll get. And that's one sure way to fill an album full of memories.
So, that's it. The world of Minolta Maxxum photography. Don't forget to send in your warranty cards. And don't forget to refer to your instruction book, this tape, or your photo retailer if you have any questions. There's a whole world out there waiting for you to capture. Fortunately, your new Maxxum 400 SI makes it easy. For Minolta, I'm Joe Barrett. Thanks for watching, and have fun.